How to get on podcasts. Success is going to center a lot around choosing the right topic. What news topics are currently being talked about that are related to your business? If you choose something that's trending, you're more likely to get a lot of free publicity. Choose topics that you want to be known for. Usually these are topics that are closely tied to what you're selling, whether that's coaching or maybe it's something like a product that you're selling on Amazon or a specific problem that you solve. Look at what's trending on X. Ask yourself, what am I good at? What do people think I'm good at? Why am I good at what I do? What obstacles have I overcome? What are unique parts of my journey that I learned from? We're going to go into more detail about this later, but being unique is actually very important to stand out from the noise. Topics should be very specific, and that's another way to stand out from the crowd. So, examples of speaking topics that are very specific. The evolution of a multi-six-figure PR agency from podcast production to podcast pitching. Why and how business owners, C-suite executives, and entrepreneurs are using podcast interviews to grow their businesses and personal brands. The podcast matchmaking framework. Notice the little trademark thing here. If you have a specific procedure or method, own it, brand it, and that is some level of uniqueness that you can apply to a podcast interview. Now, generally speaking, there are two types of PR. The first is reactive. This is where the journalist is already working on a story and they want a source, and they're turning to you to get a quote. Examples of this is using HARO, which is rebranded as Connectively, and Qwoted. Now, the second type is proactive. This is where you're helping the journalist create a story, and podcast pitching for an interview fits this proactive space. So to do this, you should have a media kit, a website, blog post, media/press page, and using social media like Pinterest, etc., to drive traffic to your site. Podcast interviews will provide you with tons of content that can be repurposed across various channels. You want to position yourself as an authority in your industry. Note that podcast interviews are about relationships, so you want the host to trust you. You can use AI for your show notes as a podcast host, but be very careful about using AI for other purposes. Focus on your goal, whether that's selling more books, increasing your revenue, getting more speaking engagements, etc. Pitch a host with a specific topic that resonates with them. Hosts are looking for fresh ideas, unique voices, and interesting guests. Bring something new, have a unique point of view. Identify your elevator pitch and key topics. Ask yourself, if I gave a TED Talk, what would it be on? A podcast interview will circle around a main topic, and you want to figure out what those main topics are for you. Generic will not help you stand out. You want a unique framework or method, and give it a name. Give tips and tools for specific businesses. Maybe your audience is podcast listeners who want to start their own business. Maybe it's software founders, etc. Now, if you're a podcast host, make sure you pick the right interview software, have a trailer for your show, and a 30-minute podcast episode is going to take 4 hours to produce, so you need to think about the details there in terms of editing, etc., and preparation. Now, you want to have a one-page media kit to pitch the hosts, and this is going to include everything a host needs to know about you, speaking topics, headshots where you can wear bold colors to stand out, where you've been featured before, so in other media, other podcasts, etc. Write your bio in the third person. Add hyperlinks to your social media and to your website, so embed those hyperlinks into Word/PDF for your media kit. The most time-consuming part of pitching yourself is finding/researching the right podcasts. So to do that, you're going to look at things like the number of Apple reviews that the podcast has, the number of followers on Instagram. Also look at the number of likes, because some people have a lot of fake followers. So looking at likes/engagement might give you a more realistic picture. Do searches like #businesspodcast. Note that the desktop version of Instagram may be limited. It may be more difficult to find contact information using that, so make sure that you're also using your phone. Also identify whether the podcast is a solo or interview style. Interview style more likely for you to get featured there. Look at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Podchaser, Instagram, where you're going to use hashtags and look for contact info, and Listen Notes, which gives you podcast rankings on a score of 0 to 100. So here I went to Listen Notes. I typed in marketing. I found this particular podcast here, and it's in the top 2% of podcasts. So given how popular it is, you may be less likely to get on there, but if you do get on there, you'll get a ton of publicity. Pitching yourself to be interviewed is not about you. It's about the host and the audience. Every podcast also has a host in terms of an actual website. The audio file is uploaded to the host, which issues an RSS feed. So the podcaster is able to publish to one website, which is the host. Then notifications are sent to other websites like Apple Podcasts, YouTube, etc. Now, once something is published, you want to repurpose that to other places. And one of the most notable ones is Instagram. When you're pitching podcast hosts, don't simply copy paste the same pitch to everyone. That's a surefire way to failure. You want to message them to get them to cover your story idea, and to be successful, that's going to require personalization. Use their name in the greeting, so hi Cindy or good morning / good afternoon Ted. Do homework on the host and the show so you know what you're getting into. Use a hook to grab their attention as you would with any journalist piece. And you need to talk about the reasons the story needs to be covered. So why their audience really needs to care about this, why it should be covered now. So maybe there's something happening, a big trend or something in the news, and why you should be the one they feature or interview about it. Tie in what they previously covered and get personal. Mention episodes you listened to specifically. If an episode resonated because of an experience you had, share it. This will make you stand out from the other pitches. So it's going to be competitive, especially with those high-profile podcasts. So to stand out, talk about a specific episode and how it resonated with you. Leave a review and rating of the podcast. Provide reasons why exactly the audience will benefit from hearing an interview with you. Why do they need to hear from you and no one else? What sets you apart? Attach your media kit and follow up 2 to 3 weeks after. And when you do the follow-up, reply to the same email that you already sent. Your pitch template might look something like this. Subject line, greeting, an episode you liked, an about you section, highlighted topics and why, so the topics you want to talk about, recent interviews, a friendly closing, and then your name. So some do's to follow when you pitch. Get personal, share what you love about the podcast, include links to your website and recent interviews, suggest a few speaking topics, attach a media kit, follow up after 2 to 3 weeks, and then again after another 2 to 3 weeks. So that's 2 follow-up emails plus the original email. Offer a freebie to the listeners. This is both something they're going to value, and it's something that's going to help build your email list and ultimately may produce new customers. So you can see here, for example, I have a free one-page product marketing plan template that you can download for Word. You can also have a statement piece, like a piece of jewelry, or maybe it's you're going to need to wear headphones likely for the podcast. So it could be something iconic, like I use these lunar red Bang & Olufsen headphones, or it could be something like the vidIQ YouTuber who uses these big, bold, colorful glasses. Something like that is effective for personal branding, makes you more memorable, makes you stand out more, especially if the podcast has a video component, which so many of them do these days. But not all of them do, so make sure you're prepared for that scenario. Now, for your background in the video, you can have things like diplomas, certifications, awards, bookshelves, maybe a painting. Make sure you stay hydrated so you're not getting all coffee during the call and you can clear your throat with water. But when you put your glass down, make sure it doesn't make a clanking sound. Test the latest version of the software you'll interview on. Countless times I've run into needing to do software updates, needing to change the microphone source, the headphone source, the speakers, etc. With experience, you're going to slow down your speaking and get more comfortable. When you start, you may be like, oh, I'm going to rush through this. I'm nervous. I need to keep talking, blah, 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 blah. But then you'll slow down and get more confident with practice. Offer an email in exchange for a free download. So you can do email nurturing software. The author recommends Flowdesk. I use MailChimp. There's all types of different software out there. And to be successful, you want to be a storyteller who wows the host and the listeners. Offer more than a Q&A, so a podcast interview is an engaging, interactive thing. Get personal. Know your story well. Know your audience well. Don't give away everything at once. So that is helpful with retention when people are listening or watching a video, is that there's something I'm anticipating that hasn't been divulged yet. Have an element of surprise. Get out of your comfort zone. Be consistent with your story to build trust. Some people change their story a little bit depending on who the audience is, but then it comes across as though you're being dishonest. So tell the truth and leave out names if necessary, or use anonymous names. Figure out how you became the expert in your field and have key talking points. You can write these down on a piece of paper, for example, when you're doing the interview, or have it up on Word or Google Docs, etc. Mention similarities with the host to help build trust. Be on time and factor in, again, the software testing. Don't use too much hand language. It's going to be a bit distracting. Try to be confident. Don't have a fixed mindset. Have a growth mindset. You need to be flexible, because when you're interviewing with somebody, they may not use the exact same terminology that you use. They may not disagree with what you're saying. So make sure you're a bit flexible and respectful. Have positive affirmations to help build your confidence going into the interview. Thank your host, but do more than just say thank you. So for example, promote them on your channels. Perhaps send them a gift, a letter, maybe a free copy of your book. Post on Instagram a story about your podcast interview. With the post, you can tag the host's Instagram account and explain what the episode was about. Encourage your followers to listen to the episode and leave a review to help promote that podcaster. And make the interview a reciprocal relationship. It's not just you trying to get free publicity. With post-production, you want to make sure the voices have the same volume, and you can transcribe the podcast interview using something like Otter.ai or Descript. Now, afterwards, you want to repurpose the podcast into marketing content. For example, stories, tweets, LinkedIn posts. You can use a free scheduling tool like Later. Create a blog post with graphics and an embedded player on your site. Create a quote graphic, so a graphic with quotations on it, and do that for Instagram, Threads, LinkedIn, X, Facebook, Pinterest, and also promote your content through emails. Also create audiograms. These are still graphics with audio attached, with captions for Instagram stories, Pinterest, Facebook, TikTok, etc. Now, some details about social media. Instagram posts should be square graphic, and you can write a mini blog post of what the episode is about. Tag the host and give followers a call to action to listen to the episode, visit your site or whatever CTA you want, and you can add up to 30 hashtags. Post a story, which is a rectangular sized graphic. Have a reel where you add a caption, and consider doing Instagram Live. Posts, for example, those quote graphics I was talking about, could also go up on Facebook and LinkedIn. You could have a tweet with graphics and hashtags. Pinterest, pin with hashtags. Have a board with all your podcast interviews. Medium, repurpose your blog post. And don't forget to build and promote your email list. It's difficult to assess the ROI of podcasts. One way to help with this would be to have a unique bit.ly URL for each freebie that you do for each episode. So that freebie might be a free consultation request, or it might be a free sample of your book, a free template, whatever it is. You could have a unique URL to track the performance of each podcast interview you do. Now on your website, you're going to have a media/press page. This is places you've been featured and interviewed. It's going to have a long bio and a short bio, description of your company, description of your book, plus your book cover graphic, headshots that are approved for download by the media. Make sure you smile. Press and podcast mentions and interviews with links, your awards, your media kit, which is a downloadable PDF in most cases, a press contact info, and logo files that they can download.